Good stuff. Let's get this over with, as one would say. There is light appearing at the end of the tunnel. Well, it's appearing for me now. I'd like to correct your exams and pity you off, but a train. Maybe it is a train, who knows? Right, so set up here. Right, I'm not going to keep you too long, right? I'm going to fly through this. And you can ask questions at the end and enjoy general banter. But I know how you're feeling, folks. I know how you're feeling. I was lucky enough to have exams before Christmas. I don't envy one bit having to suffer through Christmas with this hanging over you, okay? But I'll make it as straightforward as I can for you and give you as many hints and tips as I can possibly do so without being sacked, alright? Hence the reason this isn't being recorded. Couple of points, just your short questions and your written assignment. I haven't got near them yet, unfortunately. I had a tragic family bereavement last week that knocked me off for a few days. But I will have everything and your results uploaded and feedback by the middle of next week, okay? So you know where you stand in terms of CAs and what marks you have before you sit the paper, okay? I won't leave it hanging until after Christmas, okay? So I'll put up your own results, any specific comments. I'm not going to go into too much detail, okay? And just common areas where marks might be lost, okay? And similarly with your written assignment, okay, so I started looking through some of them, and the standard I've seen so far are quite good and quite high, okay, so not to worry about it, okay, so none of you have anything to worry about as far as I can see with a bird's eye view, alright? So into the meat of it, why you're all here tonight, okay, essentially. So your exam preparation, okay, so your exam is 2 hours, there's 3 questions and you've got to complete 2, alright? So each is a short kind of a scenario, and each question then has got a part A and a part B, okay? So you've got to answer obviously both, okay? So when we look at the topics that we've covered, we looked at carcinogens, asbestos, and that was obviously your CA, okay, 30% CA, so that's not going to come up on the paper. Chemicals and coma kind of covered your short questions. Again, that's not going to come up, and we looked as well in your short questions a little kind of touched in the area of the machinery directive. So that leaves you with 4 modules, okay, so you've got your ADR regs, your construction duty holders, your codes of practice, and your quarry legislation, okay, so they're your 4 topics, and there's going to be 3 questions, okay. So your question 1 is definitely going to be on ADR, okay, so just to look at the overview of the notes, we looked at the duty holders, the different duty holders, your consignor, the carrier, the drivers and crew, and then others in minor detail, so you can kind of essentially rule out the others there, okay, the minor detail that we looked at. So you've got 3 duty holders that you need to be able to talk about. Other topics we looked at then were training and looked at vehicles and vehicle safety, documentation, and the emergency preparedness or emergency action that needs to be taken. So a couple of examples of questions, okay, so your part A for most questions is going to be looking at, I suppose, general duties and looking at the role of different duty holders, okay? So in this case, it's the role of the carrier, so defining the role, okay, so looking at what their responsibilities are under the regulation. Then your part B is going to delve further into, I suppose, a specific function of one of the duty holders or one of the roles. So in this case, you're a newly appointed Dangerous Goods Safety Advisor, and you're doing a training gap analysis with regards to transport of dangerous goods. So you're preparing a summary report outlining the legal responsibilities with regards to training under the ADR regulations, okay? So you may say for part A, you may mention training in terms of a duty of the carrier, and then in part B, you're kind of fleshing that out as such, alright? Another example, okay, and again, if you look at last year's paper, you should be able to further define this down for yourself, okay, or further focus it in terms of what kind of a question is going to come up. So in this case, instead of the carrier, it's the consignor that you're looking at, their responsibilities under the regulations. So you're explaining who the consignor is and what their legal duties are. And then part B then is preparing a checklist for drivers and crew to ensure their legal responsibilities under the ADR regulations, during transportation from a supplier site to an end customer, okay? So again, you need to include their legal duties with regards what documentation they need to carry, what training they need to have, what vehicle checks they need to do, what safety precautions, and what emergency preparedness items need to be on board the vehicle itself, okay? So again, it's a checklist, okay? So I'm not looking for pages and pages of text. It's as simple as, you know, bullet points and a checklist and a tick box, yes, no, okay? So just read your questions at the start, okay, and be able to determine, you know, am I asking for a report, am I asking for an SOP, am I asking for a checklist, okay? So if I ask for a checklist, I just want to see a checklist, okay? So whether that takes up a page or 2 pages for you, but again, it doesn't have to be paragraphs, doesn't have to be heavy in text. I'm looking for the key points. Question 2 then is definitely on your construction duty holders, okay? So again, we looked at a number of the duty holders, your client, your designer, your PSDP, your PSCS, and contractors in general. Other topics we looked at were competency and how we deem some of the duty holders to be competent in their role, and then essentially into documentation then. So we looked at preliminary and construction stage safety and health plans and safety filing, what they are, what they contain. So again, typical question, okay, you compile a report for the client outlining his or her legal duties, okay? So in that case, you've got a client that isn't familiar with the construction regs, so you as an architect or a designer are preparing a report for them saying, dear Mr. or Mrs. Client, delighted to be appointed architect on whatever the project is, and, you know, out of courtesy, here's your legal duties with regards to the safety, health and welfare at work construction regulations, okay? And then part B then, as the architect, you've also taken on the role of PSDP, and as part of your role, you've requested a copy of the existing safety file for the building as it stands. So the client says to you, I have no idea what you're talking about. In that case then, you're explaining to them exactly what it is and the information that should be contained within it, and giving examples where appropriate, okay? So again, for example, in your safety file, you're going to have drawings. So rather than just telling me, you know, it contains drawings, what type of drawings? Are they construction drawings? Are they mechanical? Are they electrical? Are they a combination of all drawings? Things like that, okay? So essentially, what is a safety file and what should be in it, okay? And give examples of it. So question 3 then is either going to be on the codes of practice or quarry regulations, okay? So we looked at codes of practice, so we looked at, you know, what are they in terms of best practice, who writes them. If a code of practice exists, then you must obviously comply with that. What the term admissible means in terms of the legal status of the code of practice, and then the content of a specific code of practice that we looked at, which happened to be compliance basis. So a typical type of question, so explaining the legal status of a code of practice with regards to prosecutions, and then discussing the contents of a safe system of work for compliance-based entry, and give an example of each, okay? So in that case, you're looking through the safe system of work section of the compliance-based code of practice, and just giving a broad overview of an example of each, okay? So again, if there's examples in the code of practice, or if I've given examples in notes, then it's fine to use that, okay, but I don't want to get to a stage, which has happened to me before, where you get 27 of the same examples. It can be quite irritating. If you're lucky enough to be one of the first few papers I correct, you know, I'm sitting at the desk and I'm humming along and everything's all rosy. When you get to about 7 or 8 and you're reading the same examples and the same dribble sometimes, it gets quite frustrating, and that's when I take a hatred. Okay, now I mark your papers blindly. I always make sure I cover names and that, just so I'm not seen to be favouring anyone, but it does get very frustrating to be reading the same examples over and over. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if you can give examples maybe from your own workplace, somewhere you've worked before, or, you know, think a little bit outside the box. And I know in an exam setting, under pressure, you might only remember what was in the notes, and that's fine. Obviously, you know, you'll still get marks for that, but I'd like to see a little bit of thought put into it. Okay. So the quarry regs, okay, so we looked at the general duties of the quarry operator, looked at inductions, competence, instructions, rules, permit to work, record keeping, and lists of what needs to be kept and examples of that. And again, a typical question. So again, your part A is about the general duties, and then your part B is going to be something more specific. So in part B, in this case, it looks at specifically focusing on issuing permits, communication, training and the monitoring of permits to work in terms of a quarry setting, alright? And that's it. All I can do from here is wish you luck. Now I'll be online all of this week, next week. I'll still be kind of logging on and off over Christmas, so if there's any other questions or you think of anything, then don't be afraid to drop me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So if there's any questions, I'll take them now. If you all get 80+% in the exam, I'll buy you one each. And bear in mind this isn't recorded, so you've no proof that I actually said that. No, not necessarily, Ray. If it came up last year, it doesn't say it's not going to come up this year. The marks in CA, I'll try and have them done by the end of this week, and able to have everything corrected by the end of this week. So you're kind of next on my hit list. I have a group to finish off tomorrow, so I'll be getting to yours probably Wednesday. That's our Liverpool colours. We won't mention top of the league. I hope they're still top of the league for the time I'm cursing all of you after correcting your exams. Oh, Cork, sorry, didn't even consider Cork. I'm afraid we're not allowed to shoot students. It's frowned upon, but I might just keep a copy of that, Shawnee, just as proof. If any of you do tend to, if I start the wellbeing module in February, some of you have gone missing, I know what happened to you. I know you're a great bunch now, in fairness. You're pretty self-sufficient, which is great considering you're a big group. Generally, when you get the big groups, they're quite resource-heavy and quite demanding, but you seem to just go with the flow, which makes it easier for all of us. Oh no, you'll see me next semester, don't worry. Don't worry about that. That's alright, Ray, I was going to pick you up on that and I said no, I'll leave it. If he calls me Mary a third time, then that's when I'll get pedantic about it. We're all set for Santi now. Well, I'm all set, everything's bought. My husband, in the meantime, has to try and make things, so that'll be a fun night of me sitting on the couch drinking wine, watching him cursing at the purchases from Smith's. I'm sure you've all been there. The exam is 2 hours, so you have an hour per question. Two hours and do 2 questions. So you've got 3 questions in the paper and you've got to do 2. So you've got an hour per question. So I'm not sure. You have 3 exams, is it? I'm trying to think from last year. I know they change. I don't know why, but they seem to change the timetable every year. But I think myself and mine was on Saturday last year, and I see Nosheen sent an email saying to change it. I have another group online whose exams were all on Saturday last year, and now all of a sudden they're on Monday and Thursday. So I've gone back to them as well. So I'm not sure what they're thinking of this year, but generally for ODL, because you're all pretty much working, they aim for Saturday exams. So We'll the date to be confirmed as soon as Oisin hears back, but generally it's a Saturday. It's very hard to quantify into pages because you all have different writing and different sizes of writing and all that. I never try and say it has to be 2 or it has to be 3 pages. I suppose it's quality over quantity. Okay, so keep referring back to the question and not go off on a tangent. Okay, which does happen to people and it happens to the best of people when you're under pressure. But a little bit of practice, maybe when you're doing your notes and writing out sample questions, and I suppose timing yourself as well. Okay, so I suppose stick to the point really. And give relevant examples. I had a guy last year in a different group to your level, but he was given an example of a load that would move during manual handling. And he gave an example of, for example, carrying your dog into the vets, which, now he wasn't a vet, so I was going to go, well, that's not a workplace example, and I know dogs are likely to move, but it was a very unusual example to give. Give me a bit of a laugh, in fairness. Try and keep it relevant. Depends on the type of pictures, Garrett. Okay, if it's relevant, then if you want to draw a picture, then draw a picture, but, little Homer Simpson doodles and stuff like that, which again I've seen, if they're not relevant, then they're not relevant. Maybe it was a big dog, but seemingly this was the only thing he could think of in terms of a load that might move whilst manual handling. We always get on a tangent. That's why I love these sessions. That's why I don't record them as well. Jesus, I'm glad you're excited about it, because I'll be excited about it when I'm walking out of the exam board, and whenever it is early February, and it's onwards and upwards. That's the spirit, Johnny. I hope the rest of you follow suit. Yeah, see, on the other side, that's all we can do. Try your best to enjoy the Christmas. I know it's probably not easy with exams hanging over you, but you've all put in enough effort with assignments and that, so take a couple of days to yourselves anyway. Don't be worrying about it. It'll all fall into place. There's a thin line between Satan and Santa, Jennifer.